What is it like working in IT? It really depends on the job. Having done purely technical, operational, and like more of a management side of the house, it's different for each one. Overall, I would say number one, there's way more job security in IT. I will give you that. Let me give you some pros and cons. Pros. Let's start with the pros. There's way more job security in IT. Even if you're a contractor and you get laid off, if you're in IT and you got like 2-3 years of experience, you can get another job. It may not be the job you want. It may not pay as well as your other job. A lot of Americans, they complain about they can't find a job. There's lots of jobs here. A lot of times they don't want to do this or that job. And it's the same thing in IT. Like a lot of times there's jobs there, but it doesn't pay this. You don't feel like moving here or there. There's always something going on. I would say IT, the biggest pro for me is job security. I can always find a job. It may not be where I want to go. It may not be what I want to do. It may not be a great company. It may not pay well, but it is always a job that I can do. Another pro is, I know this is not going to apply to everyone, but they don't tend to care where you're from or what you look like as long as you can do the work. This is such a huge bonus because I've worked in other jobs before. You know, when I was much younger, I did other jobs. I was a cop for a whole 5 years. And for being a cop, first of all, is the most stressful job I've ever done in my life, number one. Number two, they're not going to discriminate necessarily against your size or weight or whatever, but you did have to be in some kind of physical shape. I mean, I'm not going to say it's discrimination, but in IT, it just takes your mind. Like, you don't have to be physically fit. You don't have to be so tall, or it's less based on physical and more focused on what you can bring, who you are, what can you bring to the table skill-wise. And I really appreciate that. That's a huge pro that I have not seen in any other jobs I was in my life. It usually pays better than most jobs, I would say. That's another thing. It usually pays and has more benefits like medical and stock options and 401ks and all that bonuses, all that kind of stuff you see regularly in IT. You don't always see that in security jobs, like physical security jobs. You don't always see that in some of the medical field jobs. My wife is in a CNA. She doesn't see a lot of stuff that I see. Like, IT has so many extra benefits and perks and more money as a whole. It pays more. Not all jobs, but on average, it pays more than most. Whether you're in retail or you're a cook or if you're, restaurant, hotel industry, they make way less money. As a matter of fact, a old coworker of mine who worked on that SIEM system with me, he was like a professional services SIEM guy. And a SIEM is a security information event manager that collects logs and then people look at the logs or whatever. He told me his dream was to become a cook, and he did. He was an older guy. He was like, I don't know when I met him, he's like 45, 50, something like that. He's my age now. In my 30s, he was 15 years older than me, something like that. Anyway, so he was telling me how he used to be a cook back in the day, like in his 30s and 20s and stuff. It was his dream job. He's a great cook, apparently. He actually ran his own hotel. He said it just didn't pay that good. He owned his own restaurant at some point. He was a cook. He went to school to be a cook. All that. He spent $30,000 to become a cook, all this stuff. He wasn't making a lot of money. He said he moved into IT because it makes more money. He didn't necessarily want to do IT, but it just made so much more money. Like, he was making like 6 figures, was talking to him, and had all these crazy bonuses from selling stuff, like from selling IT products and services. So yeah, I mean, it pays way better. Some of the cons, let me see. So pros, we talked about, they don't look at you physically. They just want to know what you can do. That's why they'll hire people from other countries with a huge accent. They'll hire people who are goth and have earrings in their freaking face, have tattoos all over. They'll hire people that, black, white, Asian, doesn't matter. Like, they don't care. Can you do the job? That's what they care about. For me, huge bonus. I love that. I love being able to work with other people too from all over the world. For me, that's a huge bonus. And it pays well, it has great benefits. So we talked about all that. Now let's talk about the negative stuff. The negative stuff with IT is, I would say, it kind of depends on what part of IT you go into. It can be very stressful. In what I do, which is more governance and risk management framework, it can be very stressful at times. Another one I currently do, is risk assessments. It can get very stressful. There's a lot of money involved. And companies, sometimes their entire livelihood depends on the assessments that they get. There's a lot of stress involved, and they're constantly under attack by all of these different hackers and stuff. Like, it's a war going on all the time. So it can be very stressful depending on what job you go to. I've been at some jobs where, like, the network engineering job wasn't stressful. It was pretty chill. Like, we just didn't do anything until something happened. Like, we studied, of course, or maybe they want us to document the network or something like that. But if there was nothing going on, if there's nothing broken, you were chilling. It depends on the job. So it can be stressful. It can be volatile too. One of the pros I said was that it makes more money and it's more stable. You can always find a job. But that said, it's constantly moving. Like, it's volatile. Like, you constantly have to learn to keep up with the craft. And that way it's not like banking where you learn it one time and then you're good. You learn how to flip houses one time and then it's not going to just suddenly change. It's going to remain that way for years. In IT, like, you constantly have to learn. So for some people, that's definitely a con. You can lose your skills. It's almost like a musician, like really good guitarist. Like, if you don't play for a long time, you can lose your skills. But also, it's constantly moving. And then, like, another thing that's volatile is the companies are constantly moving. Huge opportunity to have a contract with this gigantic organization, and then they make millions of dollars for a while, then boom, it's gone, and they hire someone else. It's just volatile in that way. So those are the main pros and cons of IT. It can be stressful, it can be volatile, but on the other end, it makes more money. It is pretty stable if you have the skill set, and it has pretty good benefits.